Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this side event on Myanmar, another year of violence and impunity, and the need for international accountability. My name is Rosanna Ocampo from Forum Asia. This morning, we heard the presentation of the report and the interactive dialogue with the Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in Myanmar. And in her presentation, the Special Rapporteur gave some very strong recommendations on business and human rights in terms of extractive industries and also on hate speech and the need to consult with refugees and affected communities on repatriation and relocation, proposals for victim support, and the need to refer Myanmar to the ICC in order to bring about accountability. She also ended her interactive dialogue very strongly, saying that we shouldn't ask Bangladesh to respond to the humanitarian crisis indefinitely. We shouldn't ask refugees to stay refugees indefinitely, and also that we shouldn't be telling people who live in conflict areas that we cannot help them. And she also called for the council to stop talking and start doing. At the same time, she said that victim rights should remain the core of all our approaches to responding to the situation in Myanmar, and that it's important to engage with civil society also because of their institutional knowledge and force. So we're pleased to have this side event to talk about these issues further. We're pleased to be joined by the Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in Myanmar, Yan Lee. And we also have Rohingya refugees coming to us from Cox's Bazar, Hamida Khatu and Kibula, as well as human rights defenders from Myanmar, Marine and Kinomar. So to start with, we'd like to hear some testimonies from the Rohingya refugees. So we're going to start with Hamida Khatu, and Wei Wei has kindly agreed to provide some translation.
Assalamu alaikum. Ara Bangladesh, ara Deki, ara Burma hukumat zalate marde furade de dugade de in Deki ara Bangladesh kan asro diye ara de se hadde diye ara which has Deki.
Assalamu alaikum. We are given the safe haven by the Bangladesh because they have realized and recognized that we've been facing a threat to our security and our life.
Bangladesh originary Thailand kom. Bangladesh originary kom. Toile arare haide to bosu to the hari mari jara tikalla embassy kalu.
So we are an ethnic indigenous group from Burma, Myanmar. The Burmese government have been persecuting us for 60, 70 years. Why? Because they want us to accept NVC card, National Verification Card.
NVC card no le diyan labuli arare NVC card lo abena bar diyan labuli arare ki guje change hari mari 10,000 tribus se Bangladesh gudi 10,000 tribus sorry 10 lakh.
Because we refuse to accept national verification card, they target us and they kill many of us, and about 1 million people become refugee in Bangladesh.
10,000 to mar komor hari bala Asia sto purito gara puje puanga hola ko head di dire gara puradi barai.
Even before, about 10,000 people were killed and about 86 mass grave happened and many were burned.
Toile Arab Burma hukumat genocide guri Arab desho bad di barai head yar jara jara yat pure yede arare genocide guri desho tu nara dilai.
They commit genocide against us and they expel our entire population out of the country.
Arab sotulindo mayabandar refugee.
about 1,800 women were raped.
Genocide kiri anak Burma tu nara kali Arab dunia ni bisaro di bapa. Dunia ni bisaro di bapa dia taratun hak asal taratun kan empur power citizenship asal taratun dia hak asal insani sepka. Arab hak yang Arab tu naik hak yang Arab tu fonsa.
We have testified to the war again and again. And the war, you guys have power and you guys have right to protect us. You guys can protect us. So we seek your protection.
Toile Arab tu taratun garas se Arab tu gonna. Toile tara hak garas di sepka tara dase hak hoto kisime hak ko jende tara tu ase Arab tu haki banai. Toile oin tara Burma mazo oin ko moro das tu bigoro na Arab ko moro dase dosa digini.
So in Myanmar, everyone has house. Now we lost our house, and when all this opening up and developments and all these opportunities come to Myanmar, our community has no privilege or no access to any of this.
Tole tara tu garas se Arab tamu tole taki tole hisabe Arab hok kino Arab di Arab badalagi no Arab di toile Arab karen sa banai Arab de university reforms di Arab role de dia हमको Burma देश में तो कल गया
That is why I urge you to help us to bring back, to go back to our home and to assure our dignity and our right to return to our original houses and help us to achieve our full citizenship rights and to have a recognition as a ethnic groups in the country as we have.
Tole hele tu di haram hole dunia kada fashala ko di jide kham bandi jide e fashala matabe Arab DPS ko dia ase dunia ka kam bana de je e matabe Arab Burma dunia ye Arab जागो सु दिया बता कि दिया आर बर्मा को कुमले रे महाबला दि तो आर लगु आर को सुगुर ने
We also ask you to assist reconciliation between the Burmese government, Myanmar government, and our community to have a political dialogue. I will stop here now. I'll be happy to answer any question.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. I'd now like to invite Muhibullah to speak a little bit about his experience.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Muhibullah. I am from Momno, Myanmar. We faced a genocide. We driven out to the Bangladesh. Now we are living in Bangladesh, going a refugee camp, Cox's Bazar area. Thanks a lot to the Bangladesh government. Let us to come here. Also thanks a lot to the Switzerland government. Accept us and also Human Rights Council invite us. We are very glad to see you and consulting with us about our cases. It is our demand and our willing to discuss our problem with us. We can discuss ourselves. So today I get a chance to show our demand and our opportunity. So now we are leaving the camp. We become the refugee. We cannot hope as you. You are the local, we are the refugee. Name is the difference. So our right is a difference also. So that we cannot aim as you. So anyway, we are receiving 3 kinds of foods. Rice, nut means dal, maybe somewhere called tea and oil. We are getting the district. For the nutritional food to be safe life, need a lot of things as we are using every day. But we have more. Nobody thinking for that. Nobody coming to offer. We are patient on that because of we become refugee. Oh yes. Oh, we feel as you. Anyway, we request and we ask in international community how we go home quickly. We would like to go home with our right, dignity and safety. We are strongly demand about the security because we are the same right, same ethnicity, same nationality in Myanmar as other ethnic groups. But Myanmar government gradually and systematically genocide and decreasing our power slowly. When our Rohingya communities are not included in any government service, for them easy to discuss hiddenly to genocide us. We cannot protect because we cannot get information on time. Our members is not included in the government service. It is our main weakness. They reduced in us. At the beginning, when independent in Myanmar, 1948, up to the 1960, we are the same right. We have a parliament members, we have a minister, everything. We can vote, we can elect it. After 1962, the martial law period, the General Une Wing start the genocide, decreasing any kind of right from every step. After that, the genocide is coming hidden slowly, part by part, one by one. At first decrease their service, and then decrease our education, and then decrease the movement, and then decrease our health care. So gradually and systematically by the law. So that time we cannot take care, we cannot say. So now we would like to request the international community, please try for us to go home as quickly as possible. We would like to become as you. We are also human as you. We are not asking more about the food, about the ration, something. Because of my horses, my shelter is covered in the tarpaulin or by the bamboo. So it will be maintained maybe 2-3 months. Anyway, we don't want to ask again for that. We are asking to go to home for right. For the international security is very important. We don't believe the Myanmar government security. They never with us. We patient up to 60 years. We wait. They will do something for us, goodness, but never. We wait for Aung San Suu Kyi also. We believe her, we voted her, we pray for her when she is in the house arrested. But finally, when she was elected, totally condemned our good list. So our hope is totally failed. So we have no hope for them. They will protect us. So as I discussed morning, so many people come to the camp asking such kind of question. We answer everything. Thousands of people. We want victims answer 50 times. So we become tired. we have no new answer. Please use this data to take a specific solution, perfect solution. We think it is enough for the taking solution. No need more data because we have no more data. Already mentioned everything. You have everything. Maybe your desk, a file of our data. You can use this. By collecting data, taking time, we become here, become human. So, thank you getting the chance to discuss with you. Also hopefully to discuss ourselves, this kind of meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for speaking with us and sharing your call to the international community to help refugees like yourself go home as quickly as possible. But I think it's also important to note that the conditions in Rakhine and other parts of the country aren't quite safe yet for returning. So I'd like to invite Wei Nu of Women Peace Network and the Rohingya Human Rights Defender to speak to us a little bit more about the situation in Rakhine and how the Council can respond to the issues affecting the Rohingya and Kaman communities in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosanna. Thank you, Hamida and Muhibul, for providing insights becoming a refugee. I would just like to reiterate a bit on what they have said. Basically, as far as I understood, from their messages and from across the Rohingya community, what they want really is not food or not ration. They don't want to beg for the food or ration. What they want is human dignity and equality, as they used to have in the past, or as we used to have in the past. And they were saying that they were equal citizens of Burma until 1962. And they were regarded as one of the ethnic and indigenous community. And gradually, through these governments, the governments from the general naming Masala period till until now, the community was targeted and systematically deprived of our rights. And at the end, majority of our populations become refugees. Now we have to beg for food and rations stuff. But this is not what we want. What we want is equality and dignity in our own land. So ultimately what they're seeking is right to return home to their original houses and to have equal citizenship rights. Not a lesser citizenship rights or status such as national verification card. And that's had been the debate for decades now. But this Burmese government is still trying to trick the international community, saying that we are providing citizenship, the documentations, and it will take a long time. We have to verify these people because these people are unverifiable. But we also have to remember that this community is one of the most enumerated community in the world. For the last 25 years, every 3 months, government has come to the village by village and take record of the every individuals, including their animals. They took pictures and they check the family list of the individuals of the families. That has been ongoing for 25 years. So the community, the Rohingya, doesn't require any further documentations or verifications. The documentations and verifications is already there with the government. What we really need is the goodwill to act on and to address this policy. And that this goodwill can only become with your support and with your action. Right now, while we are talking about refugees in Bangladesh, their living conditions, their future, the right to return, but situations in the ground in Rakhine State is not really secure. There is no, with the increase of fighting between Arakan army, the ethnic Rakhine army and the Burmese military, the people become more and more vulnerable, not only the Rakhine, but also the existing vulnerability against the Rohingyas and Kmhlan community has increased. There have been increase of forced labor and restrictions of movement against the vulnerable populations in Rakhine State, and the general condition is as it is since 2012. There is no access to healthcare at all, and there is no freedom of movement. The university students are still stuck. They are not able to go back to their the universities that they used to go. I was with the CEDAW review, within the CEDAW review process. I engaged with the CEDAW review. The government has come up with the answer on the higher access to higher education, saying that they have been, according to the Kofi Annan Commission recommendations, they have provided access to education for the Muslim students in Rakhine State. And their data, they described the data in 2018 exam years. They have 12 students set exam for the higher education at the university. And it's like a joke for us. So they are so proud to say that there is 12 students who set the university education, which they just actually referring is the distant educations, a lesser education system that they introduced by referencing Kofi Annan Commission recommendation. So, and in reality, that is not only the students have almost no access to higher education, but also the government has introduced more segregatory policies and practices by referencing Kofi Annan Commission's recommendations in the real life of the populations, in education, in healthcare, in even camp closures. So when we talk about return of the refugees from Bangladesh, they said, okay, there are about 120,000 at least IDPs there. Let them go to their original places first, and then we will come back. Even if they are not being able to go back to their original home, how can we expect that we will be able to go back to to our houses? And we don't want to be concentrated or confined in another camps like IDPs in Bangladesh. So, in Burma, in Rakhine State. So what I want to say is, basically, with the increasing instability and fighting between the Burmese army and Rakhine Arakan army, and also increasing, continuing attack to the Rohingya population itself, people in Rakhine State are not still safe and secure. And also, they are not being able to go back to their original places. Instead, government is trying to create further, permanent structures of camps in the Rakhine State for the IDPs, and that's create a lot of frustrations for the refugees and IDPs itself. And also, when we talk about the citizenship, they have been continuing or forcefully imposing against the Rohingya populations to accept the NVC card. So these are very problematic situations, and there has not been any positive development since 2012, and even after the different reports and recommendations by the special reporters and fact-finding missions, there has not been a single positive development for the Rohingya community. That's the most important thing. Meanwhile, they have been trying to trick international community by forming these international commissions of inquiry. That commission itself, as you may see, that's formed by the government is obviously not independent, and it's not impartial, and it's not credible. The commission's member itself has described their mandate as it is not to really finger point. The chairman of the commission itself herself says this commission is not to finger point anyone. So, and it also has a members, compositions of member at the commission has also involved the government officials. It has obviously has a conflict of interest. The government officials who is on the board of UEHRD is on the commissions of inquiry. So we can clearly say that the commissions of inquiry is not credible and impartial or independent, and also lack a capacity to really bring justice for the victims. That is why we think the council should act more specific and more constructive manner to address international criminal accountability, and continue push for the reference to the ICC, and continue bring voices of the people and encourage government of Myanmar to talk, government of Myanmar and international NGOs and communities to engage with the community members to find a durable and sustainable solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wei Wei, for sharing with us more about the situation on the ground, especially in Rakhine, and how the government's response clearly will not be sufficient to address or the problems with the government's response, and which is why we need stronger action from the Council. I'd like to now invite Kino Mar of Progressive Voice to talk about issues affecting other ethnic communities, including the Shan and Ta'an, and talk a bit more about the overall situation in the country and your own recommendations on business and human rights and justice and accountability.
Thank you, Rosanna. Yesterday, I got a call from somebody, happened to be my Facebook friend I've never met, who is from the Muslim minority community in the country. Just happened to be seeing, like us being here with this panel today. So he asked this question specifically. One, is ICC going to come? And I'm like, let me explain later about that. The very frustration this person shared with me just yesterday was because he and his family happened to be, like going to the immigration office to renew their ID cards, and they were given the form. On that form, it says mixed blood people. They said, where did it come from? Why are we being categorized as mixed blood? And there are so many of the paper documents that they are required just to come back to renew their ID cards. And then he went on telling me, this is not random in one place. It is happening in many parts of the country, and it has been impacted to the communities, in particularly the Islam community. And he went on saying, which also verified of my other sources of information from the eyewitnesses and the people who experience it, is also, for example, like when the children now, at the schools, when they turn 10 years old, they are to be issued ID cards at the school. The Muslim community, the Muslim children are no longer issued the ID cards. When the children are born, to get the birth certificate, in many cases, the parents are required to bring the neighborhood to the court to prove that these are their children, to get a certificate. When you go to the immigration office in Yangon, the mixed blood, or the Muslim, or the Christians, are asked to queue in a different line to either apply or to renew their passports, while the Buddhist majority can be taken in one separate line. This segregation, if you ask, is it happening only now? It is not only happening now because it's been quite long institutionalized in practice. However, it's getting worse. That's what we can tell you. It is getting worse as it's now come up to be on the surface as the country open up. Is the government able to do anything about that? We are having a challenge with, some people call us two governments in our country. Of course, there's only one. But then you all know very well that the Tamador has the disproportionate power. But is it really true that civilian government led by Aung San Suu Kyi has no power at all? It is not true. They do have power as well. It's a matter of fact is that they lack the political will and the capacity in combination. These day-to-day discrimination against the minorities are coming to be more prevalent, and also the ultranationalist organizations such as the Mabata and their associates and proxy organizations are bringing the matter into their head. And that's the very reason, if you go into the country, at least 27 villages across the country are now having a billboard at the gate, at the entrance of the village, saying that no Muslims allowed, or Muslim-free zones, or Muslim-free villages. And some areas won't even go further, with the billboards telling young Buddhist women marrying non-Buddhist men, that includes the Christians, will be kicked out from the village permanently and will be fined, which is equivalent of about $5,000 US. So with all of this is happening, it's something that is come to be quite worrying for us, is because we speak now, just recently in last couple of days, the National League for Democracy, party of Aung San Suu Kyi, held the demonstrations with a big finale, praising Aung San Suu Kyi for leading to build the 5th Burma nation. What does it mean, the 5th Burma nation or 5th Myanmar nation? Both Burma and Myanmar, or Burma and Myanmar, are one and the same, which referring to our group, who are the majority Buddhist and Burma. And Aung San Suu Kyi is now praised as leading this particular project, which has always been led by the military, and where the minorities will have to suffer at the hands of the majority identity, and that is exactly what the military is doing at the moment. This is quite challenging for us as we are facing this lack of, ongoing the violence against the Rohingya community in particular, and also the other communities like Kaman in the Rakhine. But I want to actually bring you to see beyond Rakhine, because this Burma Buddhist nation building project by the Tamil, now probably being supported by the National League for Democracy, goes further beyond the Muslim minorities in Rakhine State. It goes to the Christian as well. If you go to the north, to the Kachin, when the Tamil, the Myanmar army, the Myanmar military launch the military operations, what they do is first, yes, they attack, do the military offensives first. Second, they take over the land. But then third, immediately, they build the Buddhist pagodas and Buddhist monasteries. And they call, those monasteries are called Da U Jiao. Da U Jiao means the monasteries of the frontline battalions, the frontline battalion. So basically, what we are seeing is, this is actually, it's not only to the Kachin. My colleagues in Karenni are telling that in their neighborhood, the Buddhist monasteries are popping up. They asked the authorities, the local authorities, the general administration department people, how come? And then they were told like, oh, the order comes from the above. We don't know. Meanwhile, what we're seeing is the military operations and military presence has come to be increased. The military base, the army bases in the ethnic areas, many areas in the past, before the country opened up, were very temporary. But now, with the nationwide ceasefire agreement, many of those bases come to be permanent. And that's very scary, because what you see is this military with the armies and battalions and arms and ammunition come in. On one hand, what you have is this ultranationalist Buddhist organizations, such as Mabata, are actually not only infiltrating into the non-Buddhist areas with that the agenda, but they are also holding massive public rallies in support of the Tamil military doing offensive to their ethnic areas. In the last 2 years, more than 100 public rallies, some of them as large as like 50,000 people joined, by the Mabata were organized and held in support of the Tamils' war against the ethnic areas, in the name of protecting their race and religion or their sovereignty. So this is where Burma, Myanmar is in the post facts-finding missions report. What we are seeing is such increased militarization, and that's the very reason that we need to actually hold the military accountable. And in order to do that, on one side, we would like for your support to bring this, any efforts to bring the criminal accountability, international accountability measures. On one side, we really thank the Special Rapporteur for bringing up the very root issue of the backbone of this military, which is the state-owned enterprises and the military-run conglomerates, because they are the backbone. Together with the business cronies, the military actually control or monopolize the country's economy. And in fact, this is the money that they continue to fund themselves to carry on with all of these crimes. So for that, we also would like for your support to take more concrete, coordinated action to hold them accountable from the economy side, because that's the only way that we will be able to move forward with that we addressing the justice and accountability. So I just want to stop there. So we would like to hear from the Special Rapporteur. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar, for talking a bit more about the situation in the rest of the country and the overall picture in the country, as well as your own recommendations. Now that we've heard from civil society, we'd like to turn back to the Special Rapporteur. It's an honor to have you here. We know you're very well aware of the issues raised by civil society, but we'd like to hear maybe some other reactions you might have to this. If there are any other issues from your report you'd like to highlight, as well as recommendations on how the Human Rights Council can support your mandate and other human rights mechanisms.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm very honored to be here with the panelists, this distinguished panelists, especially Hamida and Mula, who joined us. And I'm going to start with where Kinomar left off in the other ethnic areas. I just want to give you just what it looks like, just a snapshot of what it looks like now. There are about 160,000 IDPs in Shan State and Kachin State. 46% are children. Over 55% are women. Over 55,000 are women. And they haven't had any humanitarian access since 2016. You can imagine. In Rakhine, there are 128,000 IDPs left in Sittwe. 53% are children, and over 65,000 are women. When I visited these IDP camps in Sittwe, with some of the restrictions, some agencies had to withdraw rations, food, to these camps. And many people had to share their food with the children. They had to give up their food. We also have, as Weiwei said, commands are recognized, one of the 135 ethnic races in Myanmar. In Chokpyu, southwestern part of Rakhine, we still have thousands of Kaman Muslims living in IDP camps. I visited them in 2017. They told them, they were told in 2012, you would just have to stay there for 3 days, but they're still stuck. In this situation, they have relatives, brothers and sisters, who have converted to Buddhism. They live outside the camp, whereas the Kamans, who haven't converted to Buddhism, live inside the camps. This is the snapshot of what it is. Now, you all know that Myanmar has ratified the International Covenant on Economic and Social and Cultural Rights. And within that, you know, in all international human rights instruments, there is a phrase called progressive realization. That means, you know, many countries, if they can't, because of their economic conditions, cannot provide all these services immediately, so you have to progressively move on to providing whatever services are necessary so that the citizens of that country and the people living in the jurisdiction of that country can realize their rights. However, under this covenant, there are certain things that has to be done immediately upon ratification, which is they have to provide education, adequate standard of living, housing, health services, within a non-discriminatory frame. Now I'm wondering how they are complying with their international obligations that they selected. Nobody's forcing Myanmar to ratify certain conventions. They are selecting. But nevertheless, if they can't comply with their international obligations, I think that really gives us testimony of the political will of the government. Many people talk about the 1982 citizenship right, granting citizenship. I have to say, Kofi Annan recommendation was extraordinary. But the one phrase, the one recommendation that was a sticking point and that had gone through many, many negotiations and had to be watered down was the phrase, pathway to citizenship. I mean, that is something that really blocks this whole thing. I mean, what is a pathway? You go on a path, and if it's a dead end, that's it. If you go on a path, and you fit that path, is it what will be delivered? If you go on a path, that's a detour. Who's responsible for that? Right? But we have to remember that many of the Rohingyas were citizens before. So I've always, in all my calls, I always say, restore the citizenship that they are entitled to. And for the next generation, because if their families, the parents' citizenship has been restored, the children's citizenship will automatically be guaranteed. It has to be guaranteed. It will not automatically be guaranteed, but it has to be guaranteed. So this is something I'd like to end with, but I have just one more thing, and Mohibullah has mentioned it, and this is something that I have been troubled with, is that we have lots and lots of high-level visits to Cox's Bazar. They talk to these people, they have these statements, but what's coming after that? Many of our friends who live in Cox's Bazar have high hopes when extreme high-level celebrity comes. Maybe this celebrity will deliver something, or maybe this celebrity will deliver something, but for a year and a half, it hasn't been delivered. And Mohibullah also said that, and I've talked to some of the victims of rape, they had to be interviewed and re-interviewed dozens of times. They had to be driven to speak with these high-level delegations many, many times. They are reliving that trauma, and I really implore everyone to stop this and start doing it. There's enough evidence out there. The more our refugees are interviewed now, their evidences cannot be used under the independent mechanism, and the evidences cannot be used under criminal prosecution process, because they have been interviewed once, and tampering of information or not tampering, but contamination of the evidence. And so right now I think that we have enough evidence, but it's time to deliver, and let's stop this talking and start to begin the doing.
Thank you very much, Yasmin, for your points and for reminding us and members of the international community and the Council that it's really time to take more concrete action on Myanmar. And we have about 10 minutes or so left, so we'd like to open the floor for any questions you might have. Are there any questions from the floor? Okay, seeing none, maybe we could just go back to our panelists and give you maybe, oh, okay, yes, please introduce yourself and let us know.
Hi, good afternoon. Gerald Joseph, the Human Rights Commission of Malaysia. Thank you for the presentation. There is the ASEAN group just now presented on their efforts on the ASEAN humanitarian. AHA, yeah, forget the last A. So maybe what should we take on that AHA effort? What should we push for, and what's the angle to ensure that it doesn't become another of the many initiatives and committees that have been already in place? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Are there other questions from the floor? Okay, seeing none, oh, yes.
Yes, Chris Lewa here from the Arakan project. I think it's important also to raise the issue of the current situation in northern Rakhine right now, with the new renewed conflict with the Arakan army and the government. Because as you know, of course, the Rakhine people have themselves often had no control of the natural resources and of their life, but at the same time they also been responsible for acts of violence against the Rohingya community, and it has been animosity for a very long time. And so now that the fighting has especially escalated between the Arakan army and the government, I think it's really another very serious concern about how the Rohingya are being caught in the middle. And it's particularly, I mean, we see already development when the military try to have the Rohingya on their side, or then make them, for example, rebuild the camps with forced labor that has been destroyed by the Arakan army. So the communities inside are really afraid of what can happen to them, because they can be seen by the Rakhine as cooperating the authority with the army, and the same thing. And I understand today there has been even further development, especially it seems like in some places the police have started, this is mostly Rakhine, have started siding with the Arakan army. And even I just received during this pictures from Mondo town when the Arakan army flag have now been hoisted in the town. So I think this is something that needs to be monitored extremely closely, because it could be another disaster, I think, for the Rohingya, for the Rakhine perhaps too, but especially for the Rohingya caught in the middle. So I wanted to raise that point. And perhaps I have another question, maybe a difficult one, because the Bangladesh government have been proposing and increasing the issue of safe zones. And I haven't heard any comments on this, but I think, I would like to hear perhaps from the Special Rapporteur what's its position in relation to the creation of safe zone. I think it's very unlikely now, but at the same time, of course, when you say yes, the Rohingya people wants to return to their homes, but we have to be realistic that most of the homes have been completely destroyed. It's not that they will just return, and as you say, new camp, new structure, but also the large area of land have been already marked with flag, and it seems this is not, as we always suspect, perhaps the government is trying to plan relocation sites, but we understand that also development projects. And as you know, just a couple of weeks in February, there was an investment fair in Rakhine State, when I understand, and that was especially in the southern part of Rakhine, but that some mega project has been signed up with investors. So I just want to raise this issue, but I'm also interested to hear what you think about the safe zone and how we need to react on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Should we take a last comment or question, if there's any? Okay, now I'll invite the panelists to respond to some of these points. Perhaps we could go in reverse order. So let's start with the Special Rapporteur.
Thank you very much for these questions. The gentleman from the Myanmar National Human Rights Commission. Malaysia, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm very encouraged to hear that Malaysia has now has acceded to the Rome Statute, ICC. And perhaps in the future, as I recommended, that if the Security Council cannot refer, or will not refer Myanmar to ICC, that a member state can refer it to ICC. And I think, I mean hopeful, maybe too hopeful, that in the future, because there's a big, very different change in narratives coming from your government now, really contesting the ASEAN principle of non-interference. And I would like to also add that maybe, I've said this before many times, that maybe ASEAN should now adopt a new principle of non-indifference. Yeah. Now with the AHA, there's a lot of hope in the ASEAN community of the AHA initiative and the ASEAN's visit to Rakhine. And I think it's also very important that the regional mechanisms, initiatives are supported too. But I don't want it to, as you said, be another layer that will delay what has been enormously delayed already. You know, we'll say it's always been, there were so many commissions. The Moldova Commission was there, and this commission there, and everything. It was always, let's wait for the Kofi Annan report. Let's wait now for the independent Commission of Inquiry's report. So it's all that delay and delay. And I hope that this AHA initiative and the report and whatever initiatives that AHA will be taking, ASEAN AHA will be taking, will not be used as another blocking hurdle. Let me just say that the situation in Myanmar, and I was surprised that the permanent representative did not mention this, is that the narrative, and then there's a new addition to the complexities of Myanmar, especially in Rakhine and northern Rakhine, because of the Arakan Army and the Taekwondo. And you're right, Christopher, that the Rohingyas could be caught in the middle. And even some of the Rakhine community definitely will be caught in the middle. Now, recently in Muraku Township, 90%, I think it was 89 village administrators resigned because they're afraid their colleagues, 4 of them were charged with unlawful association with AA, with Arakan Army. In Muraku Township, there's only 100 village administrators. That is a big sign that when village administrators are afraid to do their job, because they'll be damned if you do and damned if you don't, okay? For both communities too, and also from the government as well as the Taekwondo. So that's another addition that we need to be very careful to monitor and see the new developments. Every day we're seeing new developments in northern Rakhine now. Every day, yeah. Police posts, policemen are now killed, and this and that. And so I'm really concerned about the situation in northern Rakhine. Now, in terms of safe zone, it was at the suggestion of Bangladeshi government a couple of years ago. Well, last year when Sheikh Hasina had said in their general debate in UN and the General Assembly. And I hear many of our friends who live in the refugee camps in Cox's Bazar, they have taken on this narrative. And they demonstrate on their safe zones. I have been from the very outset against safe zones because history tells us what safe zones had produced. Now for Myanmar, if they go to a safe zone, this really is this really negates the principle of safe, voluntary, dignified, sustainable return. And you are putting a large portion of people in a guarded zone, which will make them more vulnerable and will segregate them from the other community that they are supposed to be living in peaceful harmony. So this is why I've been very cautious, and I put it in my report. And I think this is maybe something that you should be thinking about in the future, or not in too distant future, but like in future as tomorrow about it. And so I think that's about all the questions. I'm sorry I'm taking up so much time.
Yeah, I also like to respond to some of your questions. When it comes to the current increase conflict in Rakhine, yes, you're very right, especially what I already responded. But also, the Chin community is also being impacted. And one thing with the Chin is the Chins are majority Christians. So there is this, like a rising tension or sentiment from the Chin community towards the Arakan army or the Rakhine Buddhist, to some extent. Because in the past couple of years, there were some already, the Rakhine Buddhist community taking the matter into their hand, attacking the Christian, community. There are some incidents happen already. So I'm like, for me, I'm really worried about this increase and possible further increase of the inter-ethnic tension. Also, in this particular situation with the increased armed conflict in Rakhine. But interesting point is also the Rakhine army, or the Arakan army, the chief of the Arakan army publicly said that he doesn't refer the people as Rohingya. He doesn't use them. However, he said they have been living in this for a long time. They've been there a long time, which again is it's a recognizing of the presence of the Rohingya community in Rakhine State. And in fact, he even proposed a confederation proposal, which is quite, received in quite a large opposition by the Burma Buddhist majority. But to us, the Arakan army is coming up with some kind of solution in their own thinking, considering the presence and recognition of the Rohingya community in the region, in their own, in the Rakhine State, which I think is something that is an entry point. I want to come to the AHA. I think it would be so good if we, as the civil society, know exactly what they're doing. Maybe that's something, Gerald, if you could help us communicate. Because if we are to welcome them and their work on the ground, which being supported by some of the governments, from the beyond ASEAN, I think it's important that we know what they're doing. I mean, we have no idea what they do. And so the first thing will be the consultation with the civil society and the affected communities, especially, when it comes to, if they go beyond than the humanitarian aid, we are concerned. If they are, if they are thinking or want to be a part of the, solving the situation with some kind of repatriation issue or anything, because at the end, ASEAN is Myanmar. Myanmar is ASEAN. When Myanmar doesn't recognize the Rohingya people as Rohingya, we have a trouble with the ASEAN, any of the ASEAN approach, unless ASEAN really take the principal stand of the people, recognizing the people and their self-identification. So that's one thing. And very quickly on the investment, I want to say, I think I can just be very frank with you all here. I'm frustrated. In the light of the facts-finding missions report, what I'm detecting on the ground is there are more investment activities from the international community. Why? In light of the genocide, in light of the crimes against humanity and war crimes, we are seeing this investment fairs in Rakhine being openly and enthusiastically supported by Japan. And we see Japan even more, and Korea also. But Korea, yes, that's right, but Japan is at the front. And then we even, see the joint communique signed by a number of large countries, Chamber of Commerces. So to us, when we want to see the governments taking all kinds of means and efforts to address that accountability, but what we're seeing is in the last few months are more of this business activity. So I think these are the three issues that I really want to share. Thank you.
Thank you. I think most of the points you responded to, and we're running a little bit out of time, but I also want to check with Wei, Muhibura, and Hanita if you have any closing points before we end.
Yeah, I have a Yeah, thank you for timing. The UNHCR and UNDP joint committee with the MOU with the government of Myanmar, they have not reached any of our demand. They never consult with us. So we already said and demonstrate and protest we are not accepted this one. Still the UN Security Council discussing on that. Why it is? We cannot understand. Thank you, Lisa.
She says she's fine. She said she can't understand the English. She doesn't understand English, so she doesn't know how to respond. Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, what Mohibullah have saying is, until now, first of all, I think this is the most very and the most critical thing that I want you to really think seriously. That is that the inclusion of Rohingya in all the processes. And we can also measure the government's political will by seeing if they have talked or if they've been working with the Rohingya or not. Until today, we haven't seen a single Rohingya has been consulted or engaged in any of the government efforts or so-called efforts in Burma. So I believe without talking to the community, we cannot solve anything. And we have leaders, we have community representatives in Bangladesh, in Rakhine, and in Rangoon. We have 2 registered political parties. My father himself has worked with Aung San Suu Kyi for several years for democratization process as a political allies. And they know that these people have representative, but they have not been reaching out to any of this. So the encouragement calling to the Burmese government to engage with the Rohingya community is the first and most important thing. And secondly, to the international communities, organizations, UN agencies, to engage with the Rohingya community and involve them in all these decision-making processes on behalf of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I want to say thank you again to everyone for being here and to all our panelists for joining us. It's an honor to hear from all of your experience. Thank you to those who traveled all the way from Cox's Bazar and everyone who's made it possible for them to be here. And we hope that you can consider all their points because they're the ones affected by the resolution this session. So we hope that this is considered in the resolution this session. We hope for a strong and substantive resolution this session. At the same time, we hope that it's not going to be something indefinite because we were able to find a solution that really addresses justice and accountability.